Good morning and hello, I'm Jimmy. We're going to be going over Magic Cloud again today. If you haven't already checked out our QuickStart guide, I'm assuming you've been through that. You're going to want to check that out. For most people, it's all you basically need, and it goes through the basic README. If you haven't checked that out, go ahead and check that out now. Otherwise, I'm going to show you a couple of advanced optimizations we can do. We will need to use the documentation to see some of this extra stuff here that isn't in the basic README. And just a little note, the URL is case sensitive, which I didn't even know you could do. But yeah, so if the M and the C on Magic Cloud aren't capital, you'll get this 404 error. What you want to do is, either click a link or make sure that Magic Cloud is capped. And that'll bring you here, which is all we'll need from the documentation. I'll come back to this here shortly. But let's look at Small Biz Advisor, the app that we're going to be using as our example today. Okay, so Small Biz Advisor is an app I have on the App Store, and I use Magic Cloud, like all my other apps, to deal with our backend. When it pops up, the app delegate's already been set up from the quick start video, and you can see that. So it'll go in, and every time you use a new simulator, it needs to be signed in and logged into CloudKit. So that's working beautifully, exactly the way it's supposed to. We'll talk about how to do some additional work on that later in the video. So in case you want something else to be triggered besides that, you can do that. You can even actually customize the message, although we're not going to get into that level of detail today. But yeah, my computer's runs a little slow, so we're gonna fast forward through some aspects of this. But one thing I want you to notice is that the mirrors do have to update. So if your person's in airport mode, if they haven't signed in, you do have to be prepared what to do if the mirrors don't work. And so as you can see here, I do have an error message that comes up, and it lets the person know, like, hey, your cloud is not necessarily connected. It's coming in. So now let's go back, and hopefully this is finished. Oh, look, there are our tips. And that's basically what the app does. It's kind of like a ranker app for small business advice. And you can, set specific types of advice. I just want to see operational advice or whatever. Yeah, there's also, you see down at the bottom, some of these additional buttons here. We got voting, up and down, creating new, and suggesting flags and all that. So each of these are saved as a record in the system. We're just going to be looking at voting and the tips, and you got this help overlay, which explains what all the different buttons do down here and whatnot. We'll come back to that because it does pop up the first time you run it. All right, so we've got our advisor working good. It can be random mode, we can do different modes, and yada yada. It keeps track of votes, as you can see when the arrow was blacked out. But let's look at this help overlay, which comes up and kind of lets you know what's going on. And let's take a look at the code real quick and see how we're achieving that. First thing you'll notice is we have a navigation controller. Everything's embedded in a nav controller, which is a type of container view. And I highly recommend you use container views because what they let you do is put all your mirrors in one place. We do support more than one type of mirror, of course, but each successive mirror you have for the same type is going to be reducing stability. The system does try to keep them all linked up and paired, but the more you have, the worse it is. So try to use a container view so you only have to use one of each type of mirror. And then from here, you can see, like in my other view controllers, I can access that container view anywhere, and then I only need one mirror, and then everything else is just accessing that. Sometimes you're not able to do that. Of course, that's supported, but for performance reasons, you're going to want to use as few mirrors per type as possible. Now here we've noticed maybe our mirror hasn't finished uploading. This commented out code here, this is how we would normally interact if I want to cast a vote. I got a mirror of votes, and I would either append it to the cloud recordables or remove it from the cloud recordables. But let's say I want to be able to do some work on this while the mirror is still loading. just so I can get that extra half second beforehand. So what I can do here is I use this guard statement, and I set up an MC upload operation, which is also going to work very similar to MC delete operation. It has these 3 arguments here. We pass an array of the actual votes we want to upload. Every operation will also need to link to a mirror. So even though you're not directly interacting with it, you still have to have a mirror listed for error handling purposes, and also so that the operation knows what kind of generic it is. So each individual upload will be attached to a specific type. And then you got to say, is this a public database? Is it a private database? What am I uploading to? What am I removing from? And then once you have the operation, it's like any other operation. You add it to a queue, and it'll run itself. I put this little check availability at the end here so that anytime a vote has happened, it can see if that's adjusted and needs to change the screen. But you don't have to add these operations to the database. Actually, you should just run it in a separate queue, and it'll handle all of the interactions with the cloud on its own. Other things you can do is work with the notifications. So we talked about last time in the QuickStart video the change notification each mirror releases. But we do have reachability framework in here, so which is great code by Ashley Mills, and it has a couple other notifications you can listen for. So did the account status change? Did they switch from Wi-Fi to cellular? You can access all that in there. Look up reachability if you want more information about that. And then also we've got these error notifications, and I talked a little bit about this I think in the QuickStart video. But basically, anytime there's an error, it should be handled, but it'll also spit out a notification telling you. So for example, we've got this help window that pops up. What if their account isn't logged in? I want that to automatically be dismissed, because that'll be on in the first time they load. So I put this code in here, and I said anytime there's an error, check to see if it's an account error, and if it is, dismiss the help window, just so that way it doesn't block that little pop-up menu that's already there. So the pop-up menu is built in. That's going to happen automatically. But if you have to do anything extra, so my overlay happened to go over the error window we saw earlier, so this is how I get rid of it. And you'll always, when you pass the MC error notification, the optional object that's passed with it is always going to be the actual error itself, a CK error, so you can check to see what kind it is. That's basically everything we saw today. It's also in the notifications, and in the documentation. And you can see here, in the MC error notification, it does say when you passed it, the optional value will be a CK error. So you can see exactly what kind of error it was and which went with it. MC delete works just like MC upload. You have an array of things in case you're deleting. You need to attach a mirror to it so it can manually adjust that mirror and know what type it is, because it's generic. And then of course what database you're using. One note about the databases, we've dealt a lot with public and private. There is shared database support to a certain degree. I haven't set up the error handling for shared DBs, so it's kind of use at your own risk for that. If you don't know what shared DBs are, don't worry about it. It's kind of just a way to be more efficient with using private databases and sharing that on a public way without using your public data. But yeah, that looks like it. That's everything. For most users, the QuickStart guide is the way to go. I rarely have to actually implement uploads and deletes, but they are there. Hopefully you've got everything you need now to optimize the performance for your Magic Cloud on your app.
Niggas running out they mouth, but they never